Hello, everyone. I hope this morning's message finds you well. I'm going to have to apologize up front. Um, a lot of times, God just gives me a message and I roll with it. I don't know why. I've been listening, um, reading scriptures, worshiping. For whatever reason, I've not been able to hear that spiritual whisper of wisdom um, provided from the Lord, that inspired divine message given. So of course I prayed, read, and waited. But regardless, I decided, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and move forward. So I did a little studying and thought about it, and thought I would take it made me think about some things from the past that I didn't really take and really concentrate on. So I really focused on that, and I hope hope you get something out of it. Hope it ain't too scattered. Today's Sunday school intro is called "What Are Your Spiritual Hooks?" You know, we have a God who is merciful, all-knowing, and He knows all things about me. But two important things that I'm glad that Lord knows about me is that I will fail Him. And secondly, that is never my intention to do so. Having this meat so interferes with the will of the Spirit. God is not so much worried about my failures as He is with my consistent, obedient, and faithful attempts to honor and glorify Him and His will. We know that the flesh has many potential vices and crutches that keeps us from moving forward, such as smoking, addictions, pride, greed, lustful perspective of the opposite sex, and so on. I hope you like the way I word that. Having this kind of crutch and vice got me thinking, what's the opposite? Well, that's what I call the spiritual hooks. The spiritual hooks are normally scriptures that captures us. And sometimes it snags us. And it starts us on a path to a deeper and more meaningful relationship with Jesus. I know, a little odd. And I would like to share with you my first spiritual hook. But I would like to take and set it up for you first. As a teen, I believed, but I spectated from afar. I read the Bible, but I didn't really read the Bible, if that makes sense. I saw words, but I did not really comprehend it together. My life at 16 years of age was not the most stable due to the recent death of my dad and my mother going through a deep depression. And finally, a buddy of mine invited me to church. Now, I had my reservations about going. You know, church was for unique and special people that Jesus loved, which didn't include me. At that moment in life, I had a lot of pent-up anger and frustration, and dealing with turmoil of helplessness and hopelessness. How can God love me, as I was nothing special, who came from a family of nothing special? But my buddy was persistent, and it helped him out if I went because of the youth group challenge to bring a friend. So I went. I knew I didn't belong, but I kept on going because, well, people were nice to allow me to go. I remember hearing the various Bible stories, Adam and Eve, Noah and the ark, David and Goliath, but still, I didn't feel like I belonged. I continued going because people still were nice and they allowed me to go. Saw a beautiful girl that piqued my interest. My buddy went, and I really enjoyed the youth group and the way the leader presented. But my first spiritual hook that caught me was hearing about Jesus and the fig tree. Jesus got angry. Now I felt isolated and alone from keeping the mixed emotion and anger inside. And here, Jesus cursed a fig tree out of anger because it had no fruit on it. Huh. Talk about being hangry. I loved it. I related to it. I felt a connection. Now, I understand this passage. It is my spiritual hook. And it was taken out of context and misunderstood. But it did put me on the path to know, accept, and have a deeper relationship with Jesus. I've learned the meaning of the cursed fig tree since then. And let's kind of talk about that. In Mark 11, verses 12 through 26. The next day, as they were leaving Bethany, Jesus was hungry. Seeing in the distance a fig tree in leaf, he went to find out if it had any fruit on it. When he reached it, he found nothing but leaves, because it was not the season for figs. Then he said to the tree, "May no one ever eat fruit from you again." And his disciples heard him say it. Now, reaching Jerusalem, Jesus entered the temple courts and began driving out those who were buying and selling there. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves, and would not allow anyone to carry merchandise through the temple courts. And as he taught them, he said, Is it not written, my house will be called a house of prayer for all nations? But you have made it a den of robbers. The chief priests and the teachers of the law heard this and began looking for a way to kill him, for they feared him, because the whole crowd was amazed at his teaching. Now when evening came, Jesus and his disciples went out of the city. In the morning, as they went along, they saw the fig tree withered from the roots. And Peter remembered and said to Jesus, "Rabbi, look, the fig tree you cursed has withered." Have faith in God, Jesus answered. "Truly I tell you, if anyone says to this mountain, 'Go, throw yourself into the sea,' and does not doubt in their heart, but believes that what they say will happen, it will be done for them. Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. And when you stand praying, if you hold anything against anyone, forgive them, so that your Father in heaven may forgive you your sins. But if you do not forgive, neither will your Father in heaven forgive your trespasses." You know, it is confirmation. Maybe I was wrong after all. Because verse 23, Brother Willie had talked about that. The belief. Believe it in your heart. And Jesus tells us right here, "Truly I tell you, if anyone says to this mountain, 'Go throw yourself into the sea,' and does not doubt it in their heart, but believes what they say will happen, it will be done for them." The Lord told him to walk around the house, him and Sister Crystal. Make it your own. Believe it in your own. And they did, and there we are. But I want to talk about the fig tree. I want to go to another parable, but I want to illustrate some things here. Jesus knows everything. So it struck me odd, and so I had to dig a little deeper. But before we go into actually Mark, I want to switch over and think about the parable Jesus provided in Luke 13, 6 through 9. In Luke 13, 6 through 9, then he told this parable. A man had a fig tree growing in his vineyard, And he went to look for fruit on it, but did not find any. So he said to the man who took care of the vineyard, "For 3 years now, I've been coming to look for fruit on this fig tree and haven't found any. Cut it down. Why should it use up the soil?" "Sir," the man replied, "leave it alone for 1 more year, and I'll dig around it and fertilize it. If it bears fruit next year, fine. If not, then cut it down." So here we got a parable told about a fig tree. But what I love about, as I got older and I walked, Jesus used a lot of symbolism. He did examples. And so going in, studying a little bit, I realized, Jesus wants us. He wants us to turn away from the lies, to turn towards the truth and be fruitful and not barren. So when Jesus entered Jerusalem, that was the start of his final week. The people waved branches without fruit. They treated him like a king, didn't they? All mouth service. The next morning, Jesus hungry, he cursed a fig tree. The point being made is the unbelief can kill you. If your neighbor wakes you up in the middle of the night and says your house is on fire, but you don't believe him, you could die. Jesus, for 3 years, warned the Jews in an emotional plea that they were on a course of destruction, yet they didn't listen. So when you look at the illustration of the fig tree, think about this. The last 4 words in that passage that he says, when Peter asked him, "Rabbi, look at the fig tree, which you cursed has withered." And Jesus answered him saying, what? Have faith in God. Have faith in God. The religious leaders in Jesus' time, they had trust in themselves. Their source was self, and the root was their downfall. Just as the fig tree withered from the roots up, the religious leaders, they rotted from the inside out. So the lesson of the fig tree is not God will smite you if you don't perform, but rather Jesus is the life. To reject the author of the life is to reject life itself. Those who trust in Jesus have nothing to fear. The believer needs not fear the axe at the root, because Jesus is our root, and the root sustains us. The believer feels no pressure to produce fruit because Jesus is the vine, and it is his fruit that we bear. In closing, that is my spiritual hook. No matter what you're dealing with, you want to remember your spiritual hooks. If you don't think you have any, look for them. They are there and do provide comfort. Just as Jesus said in Matthew 4:19, and he saith unto them, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." Spiritual hooks are those divine inspired moments that scriptures and or people God put in your life for the opportunity to begin that glorious journey. Now, I've always been somewhat odd. Stevie knew I was odd early on. Crystal sees it. Sharon lives with it. And Brother Allen, you witnessed it many years ago at a youth group meeting, and you became another spiritual hook to me. Now, you asked us to share something with the group at the next meeting. Do you remember what I shared? I'm going to end the lesson here and share with everyone what I shared as a teen over 30 years ago to a youth group. Very odd indeed. Be blessed, and if you can, be a spiritual hook, and save a soul. God bless you and love you.
Tell a Bible story. Each night he said to me, you make the pages seem so real. I can almost see.
I guess if things were different, it might have been a bother. 'Cause each and every night, just before he'd climb into bed, you could hear him calling for his father. But my little boy, he was different from most of the kids his age. You see, his little body was frail and weak, and his little eyes, they'd never seen the light of day. And I guess his mom and me, we both knew that it couldn't be very long before he'd be called away. So I'd get up and I'd run to him every time I heard him say,
Tell a Bible story. Each night he said to me, you make the pages seem so real. I can almost see.
not enough chances, just not enough nights to tell him all the stories that I wanted him to hear. But Jesus, I told him about you and how you died that we all might live. And Lord, you remember the look on his little face and how he held the words that I told him so dear. As for me and my house, we've always trusted you, Lord. And we know one day you're going to make this dark glass we're looking through right now crystal clear. But tonight, as I sit by his little bed and I stare at the little stuffed animal that he held, please, Lord, grant me one favor. Just ask some of your friends to share some of their stories with you, the ones I didn't have time to tell. Ask old Noah to tell him about that big old boat. Maybe Moses could tell him about the Red Sea. And please remind him now and then, Lord, that I'll be there soon, 'cause I know he'll have a million stories he'll want to tell me.